Welcome to a world where steel ruled the earth. These bulldozers weren't built to hesitate. They were built to dominate. No limits, no mercy, just raw power. Modern machines look smart, but these were unstoppable. This isn't construction, it's conquest. Number 1. Caterpillar D9H. If heavy equipment had royalty, the Caterpillar D9H would wear a crown. Introduced in the 1970s, the D9H became one of the most iconic bulldozers ever built. It wasn't just powerful, it was immortal by reputation. Mines, military operations, land clearing projects, quarries, wherever extreme work existed, a D9H was probably there. What made the D9H special wasn't just horsepower. It was how that power was delivered. The machine was brutally simple. Mechanical systems, massive undercarriage components, a frame that felt like it was carved from a single block of steel. It didn't flinch at rock. It didn't complain about heat. It didn't care if the job ran 18 hours a day. Operators loved it because it never felt fragile. You could lean into the blade, feel the tracks bite, and push until the engine growled, and it would keep going. There was no software stepping in to protect the machine. The only limiter was the operator's nerve. In military and extreme industrial environments, the D9H became legendary. Modified armored versions were used to clear obstacles and terrain where no other machine could survive. That alone says everything about its build quality. Even today, many D9Hs are still operational. They've outlived multiple generations of modern dozers. That's not luck, that's design philosophy. The D9H was built in an era when machines were expected to be rebuilt, not replaced. Frames were overbuilt, components were serviceable. You could tear it down, rebuild it, and put it back to work. Modern D9 class machines are more efficient and comfortable, but none feel as invincible. None feel as purely mechanical. The D9H didn't just move Earth, it dominated it. Number 2. Komasu D355A. When Komasu released the D355A, it wasn't just launching a new dozer, it was declaring war on Caterpillar's dominance, and the industry noticed. This machine was massive, aggressive, and unapologetically powerful. In many regions, it became the first real alternative to Cat's big iron. The D355A earned its reputation in mines and heavy civil projects where production mattered more than comfort. It had the weight, the torque, and the attitude to match anything in its class. Operators described it as angry. It pushed like it was offended by the ground in front of it. What set the D355A apart was its combination of brute force and reliability. It wasn't just strong, it stayed strong. It could run in dust-choked pits, in tropical heat, and in frozen ground without becoming a maintenance nightmare. It didn't rely on fragile electronics. If it ran, it worked. If it worked, it produced. This dozer also symbolized a turning point in the industry. It proved that Caterpillar wasn't untouchable. Komasu showed that you could build a heavy dozer with equal or sometimes superior push power, durability, and operator confidence. Even today, old D355 as are found in remote operations around the world. Why? Because they still work. Parts can be machined. Systems can be repaired. You don't need a laptop to diagnose it. You need experience, tools, and grit. Modern Komasu dozers are technological masterpieces, but none have the same reputation for indestructibility. The D355A belongs to that rare class of machines that didn't just compete, they reshaped expectations. Number 3. Caterpillar D10. Before the D10 arrived, big had a limit. The D10 erased that limit. When Caterpillar unveiled the D10, the industry was stunned. This wasn't an evolution, it was a leap. Wider tracks, immense blade capacity, enormous power. It redefined what a bulldozer could be. Mines redesigned their operations around it. Contractors changed their planning. The D10 didn't just join the job, it became the job. What made the early D10 special was not just size, it was presence. You didn't operate a D10, you commanded it. The machine reshaped landscapes in ways smaller, dozers couldn't. Where others needed ripping and multiple passes, the D10 muscled through in fewer movements. It was built for punishment. Coal mines, copper pits, overburden removal, places where the ground is not earth, but compacted geology. The D10 thrived there. It could push loads that made other dozers look like toys. And like the D9H, early D10s were mechanical beasts. No dependency on fragile digital systems. If something failed, it was metal against metal. Fixable, rebuildable, understandable. Modern D10 class machines are smarter, cleaner, more efficient, but operators often say they feel managed by the machine. The old D10s felt like raw force. You felt directly connected to the engine, the tracks, the blade. There was no buffer. That connection created legends. Operators who ran D10s carry those stories for life, about pushing walls of overburden, carving roads through rock, and feeling unstoppable behind the controls. The D10 proved that sometimes, more machine really is the solution. Number 4. Euclid TC12. Before Caterpillar and Komasu ruled every mine, Euclid was a king of heavy iron, and among its most formidable creations was the Euclid TC12, a bulldozer so brutally overbuilt that many operators still describe it as a tank with a blade. The TC12 came from an era when manufacturers didn't design around fuel charts or emissions regulations. They designed around survival. The frame was massive. The driveline was industrial. The undercarriage looked like it belonged on a locomotive. This was not a machine meant to be pretty. It was meant to endure. Where modern dozers sometimes feel like precision instruments, the TC12 felt like a siege engine. It was happiest in rock, shale, and broken ground. You didn't finesse it, you pointed it at the problem and let it eat. Operators often said it felt like the machine had no fear. It didn't hesitate when the blade met resistance, it simply dug in and pushed harder. Euclid's philosophy was simple: build it heavy enough that failure becomes rare. The TC12 embodied that. Components were thick, slow-turning, and massively strong. Nothing was designed at the edge of tolerance. Everything had margin. That's why many of these machines survived decades of abuse. The TC12 never achieved the mainstream fame of a D9 or D10, partly because Euclid's presence faded over time. But in the places where they worked, mines, large industrial projects, remote operations, they earned deep respect. Mechanics loved them because they were understandable. Operators loved them because they were honest. What you felt in the seat was exactly what the machine was doing. Modern dozers are superior on paper, but no spec sheet can recreate the confidence of a machine that feels impossible to hurt. The TC12 represents that lost era when dozers were built to outlast the project, not just complete it. Number 5. Allis-Chalmers HD41. The Allis-Chalmers HD41 remains one of the most intimidating bulldozers ever built. Massive, long, heavy. When one rolled onto a site, everything else suddenly looked small. This machine wasn't about elegance, it was about dominance. With its enormous engine and sheer mass, the HD41 could push volumes of material that redefined what heavy meant at the time. In mining and large-scale earth-moving, it became a symbol of authority. What made the HD41 special wasn't just its power, it was how planted it felt. The weight worked in its favor. The track stayed glued to the ground. The blade bit deep. When it pushed, it didn't bounce, chatter, or hesitate. It moved forward like a freight train. Operators often said that running an HD41 felt different from running anything else. There was a sense of inevitability. You didn't wonder if it could move the load. You only decided how much you wanted to move. The machine demanded respect. It wasn't nimble, it wasn't forgiving, but it was unstoppable. You planned around it. You cleared space for it. When it went to work, the job site changed shape. Modern dozers are far more efficient. They can grade precisely, conserve fuel, and reduce operator fatigue. But none recreate that raw feeling of commanding something that feels industrial in the purest sense. The HD41 represents a time when bulldozers weren't tools, they were forces. They didn't adapt to the job adapted to them. Number 6. Liebherr PR776. Early heavy class era. While North American brands dominated much of the world, Europe quietly built its own legends. The early heavy class Liebherr PR776 dozers showed that brute strength didn't belong to one continent. Liebherr approached bulldozer design with an industrial mindset borrowed from mining and heavy manufacturing. Their big dozers were dense, powerful, and engineered to live in extreme duty cycles. These machines didn't chase trends, they chased longevity. The early PR776 models earned a reputation in quarries and mines where downtime was unacceptable. They pushed relentlessly, day after day in conditions that punished cooling systems, hydraulics, and drivetrains. Where lighter machines overheated or fatigued, these dozers simply kept working. What made them special was how serious they felt. Everything about them was heavy-duty. The structure, the blade, the undercarriage, even the sound. Operators often describe them as industrial, not construction machines. They lacked the comfort and refinement of modern models, but they gave something else: trust. You trusted that the machine would finish the shift. You trusted that it wouldn't collapse under load. You trusted that when you pushed into rock, it wouldn't flinch. Modern Liebherr dozers are technologically brilliant, but those early heavy-class machines came from a mindset that prioritized survival over sophistication. And in the harshest environments, that mindset still wins. Number 7. Fiat Allis FD50. Fiat. The Fiat Allis FD50 was never subtle. It was loud, heavy, and unapologetically aggressive. Where some bulldozers felt engineered, the FD50 felt forged. It carried a personality that matched its appearance: square, industrial, intimidating. This dozer became famous in mines and mega earth-moving projects where smaller machines simply didn't matter. The FD50 pushed material like it was angry at it. Operators often said it didn't work the ground, it attacked it. What made the FD50 special was not just horsepower, but how that power translated into traction. The machine felt glued to the surface. When the blade filled, it didn't hesitate. It leaned forward, dug in, and kept moving. You could feel the weight working for you. It was not refined, it was not gentle, it demanded respect, but it rewarded confidence. Skilled operators could make it perform feats that felt impossible for its era: shoving walls of overburden, carving through compacted rock, reshaping entire sections of land in hours. Modern dozers can match or exceed its numbers, but they cannot replicate its attitude. The FD50 belonged to a time when machines were allowed to be wild. It didn't babysit you, it trusted you. And that trust is what many operators miss today. Number 8. Caterpillar D8K. The Caterpillar D8K sits in a unique place in bulldozer history. It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the most powerful, but it might be the most perfectly balanced heavy dozer ever built. It became legendary because it could do everything: push, rip, grade, build roads, work mines, clear land. It was big enough to be serious and small enough to be everywhere. The D8K earned trust across continents. From deserts to jungles, from coal pits to mountain roads, it became the default heavy dozer for decades. Contractors chose it not because it was flashy, but because it never disappointed. Its strength came from proportion. The engine matched the weight, the blade matched the frame, the undercarriage matched the punishment. Nothing felt overstressed, everything felt intentional. That's why so many D8Ks are still running today. Modern dozers in this class are faster, cleaner, and more comfortable, but none feel as eternal. The D8K feels like it could outlive the earth it pushes. It is proof that perfection is not about extremes, it's about harmony. Number 9. Komasu D475A. When Komasu introduced the D475A, the industry paused. This was not just a bulldozer, it was a statement. This machine was enormous. In mining operations, it replaced multiple smaller dozers. It pushed material in volumes that changed entire workflows. Where others needed coordination, the D475A needed only direction. It was designed for overburden removal in massive pits. It did not deal in inches, it dealt in terrain. The D475A proved that there is a point where one machine becomes more efficient than many. It reduced congestion, simplified planning, and compressed timelines. It was not economical for small jobs, but in the right environment, it was unbeatable. Operators often describe it as overwhelming. You don't learn a D475A, you adapt to it. Everything happens on a larger scale. Turns are wider, loads are heavier, mistakes are bigger. Modern ultra-class dozers exist, but they are deeply computerized and delicate by comparison. The early D475A models were industrial giants, closer to mining equipment than construction machinery. They were built when the assumption was simple: this machine will be abused. Build it accordingly. Number 10. The old-school Ripper dozers. Some of the most feared machines in history weren't just bulldozers, They were ripper dozers from the golden age of heavy iron. Early D9s, D10s, and D8s equipped with massive single-shank rippers changed how the earth was treated. These machines didn't ask if the ground was rippable. They made it rippable. Modern dozers rely on mapping, ground analysis, and optimized ripping patterns. Old-school ripper dozers relied on weight, torque, and stubbornness. They attacked solid rock and fractured it through repetition and force. Operators would drop the ripper, feel the resistance, and keep going until the ground surrendered. There was no automation, no feedback, only vibration, sound, and instinct. These machines taught generations of operators to read the ground. You felt everything. You learned through resistance, and that made operators better. Today's machines are smarter, but they are also insulated. The operator is protected from the machine's struggle. Old ripper dozers made you part of the battle. These bulldozers didn't just move dirt, they moved history. They carved mountains, crushed limits, and earned respect the hard way. Modern machines may be smarter, cleaner, and quieter, but they will never feel this unstoppable. Legends don't retire. They live in iron.